from growing up in Perry, Oklahoma, a small town, and your whole journey from initially selling bracelets at 13 to mowing lawns to eventually now having your own company, AR Funnel, and living in a big city, Dallas. Tell me about how entrepreneurship has developed your character and how you've changed along the way.
Yeah, I think I think I always kind of knew or was I don't know. I always debate on this, right? Of whether or not it is something that people are kind of born with like an interest in or born with some sort of kind of like they're gonna lean towards it or not. Because my parents are not entrepreneurial people, but they always encouraged me whenever I kind of started to show some of those, like the bracelets thing, for example.
Mm.
I kind of was like, yeah, maybe I could do that because I saw one of my cousins started selling them, who was like 10 years older than me, and my dad immediately was like, yeah, cool, let's go figure out what it looks like, and took me to this like military kind of like store, and he showed me where the stuff was, how much it was going to be. He said that he would buy the first round of stuff, but if with a business, Baker, you've got to figure out how to buy it from here on out. And so like it was, he always kind of encouraged it. But I think for me, entrepreneurship hasn't really, I think you grow and evolve, but it hasn't really changed me. I think I always kind of had that, like before I knew there was a word for it.
Yeah.
The first time I ever heard the word entrepreneur was whenever I was, a few years after all of that, like maybe 15, 16, we started talking about college. I'm like, Dad, I kind of want to run my own business. I don't think I want to, like, what do I even do in college? And he's like, get an entrepreneurship degree. OU has a good entrepreneurship school. And so we like talked about, what does that mean? Running your own business. It's the same. It's a person that runs their business. So for
Mm.
me, it was like, I've been an entrepreneur since before I knew there was a word for it.
Yeah.
So I feel like it just kind of was like something that I grew within rather than something that kind of changed or altered me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I feel like there's obviously in the bodybuilding space, there's a bunch of, for me, I think with bodybuilding, I like love bodybuilding before I even knew that was a thing. But
Yep.
it's funny. There's a quote that says something along the lines of the story of the son is embedded in the father. And
Mm,
that's like a big reason for the drive or the lack thereof. And how it sounds like, your dad, was positive, what I'm saying, of the entrepreneurship, getting into it, etc. But he didn't necessarily do it himself, So
yeah.
like, how would you say, your relationship to your dad has helped you or molded you to get to where you are right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I was saying, he like my dad had very different upbringing from me and very
Mhm.
different like role that his father played in his life than what my dad, a lot of people I feel like would have used a lot of what he went through as an excuse to not be a good person, not have ambition, not do the right things. And
Mm.
if I didn't know, like if I looking back now, like as I've gotten older, if I didn't know that that was kind of his story, I never would have gotten any of that. Like it was almost like he was kind of the brick wall that like stopped all of that previous, whether you call it trauma or situational kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Like he never once, you would not know talking to this man that he had gone through some of the stuff that he kind of went through. And so I don't know,
Mm.
he's kind of just got this like uh just kind of like light about him. He's very encouraging. He's goofy, right? He's just a really a really great man just in general. And so
Mm.
it was, like I said, even though that's not his background or his story as far as entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
he always encouraged, whether it was me or my sisters, he always encouraged us to go after the things that we were passionate about or excited about. And for me, a lot of that in my youth was, sports or basketball mainly,
Yeah.
and this entrepreneurship thing, like figuring that out. And he never once, turned down and Dad, I got to go, buy more stuff and get, so I can fulfill these orders. Like, cool, let's go, because I couldn't drive. I was 13 years old. So,
Yeah.
it just, he always encouraged it every chance that he got.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's awesome. And then even like obviously, I know your sister and the boyfriend Jermaine, great guy.
Hmm.
And take me along the journey of kind of, going from, family or, parents that aren't into entrepreneurship to now you, obviously there's a big time gap in between, but actually working with your sister in business, and her boyfriend.
Yeah.
Kind of talk me through that progression. Like, could you imagine, like, if I went to young Baker, like, that you're going to be working with your sister in a business when you're older? Like, would he be like, yeah, I could see that, or would he be like, whoa, like that's like crazy in a big city as well? Like,
Yeah.
kind of where, what would that be like?
Yeah, I think as far as business with my sister, he probably would have said no, no way she's gonna want to be
Mm.
in
At the
business with
time,
me.
you weren't maybe as close, or like, I don't know,
Well,
big brother.
we were close, but she was on a just completely different path. She was like biology pre-med. She was wanting to be a
Mm.
doctor. She was like so we, I'd always shown kind of the entrepreneurial interest. We got to school. I had gotten into fitness and I'm like, okay, cool. Maybe I can do like an apparel company. I'd seen guys like Christian Guzman and Max Tuning and some of them. It's like, okay, what they do is from an outside perspective, just being a naive kid, it's like
Yeah.
they post stuff online, they work out and they sell stuff, like sell products, sell apparel. Um, and so for me, it was like, okay, that's the blueprint. In college, I'm gonna work out. I'm gonna, post everything on social media,
Mm.
and I'll start to sell stuff. This is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
And so I was, by the time she got to school, I was already a year into fitness and lifting. Was, I guess I competed right after her sophomore year, so I was just like pretty into bodybuilding basically at that point.
Yeah.
Um, and she kind of like me got to school. She had been a big basketball player and like done some track and stuff like that, but she got to school and like didn't have an outlet, like an athletic kind of outlet. And so she was looking for something. I'm like, hey, come work out with me, I think you'd really like this thing. Like, come to the gym, come lift. And
Mm.
so I think I took her through like a week of workouts. Reluctantly, she joined me for like a week of workouts,
Yeah.
and then she just ran with it. And obviously we've seen like what she's been able to build with her physique and her social medias. And I was the one that was pushing her like, hey, you got to post, like you have some promise here, this
Yeah.
is what's
Yeah.
possible if do just start posting, start posting. And I'll
Yeah.
never forget like the first picture that I saw of hers that started to kind of pop off. She showed me like the insights on it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, if you just, because I'd seen a few of I've never popped off like that, right? But I'd seen a few of my friends blow up, and what always happened is like one post, like a little while after, at that time in social media, one
Yeah.
post a little time after posting it, kind of you just see kind of like some weird spikes in metrics.
Mm.
And I knew from just seeing the other friends that happened to the other friends, I'm like, if you just post consistently for the next week, your account's gonna blow up. And so I told her, just make sure you post daily for the next week.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And she
Ride
went
the
from
wave.
yeah, it was like 900 followers to, I think it was like 9,000 followers within the next like 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
And then she just kind of continued to skyrocket. And I think she's got a couple 100,000 now.
Yeah.
Um, but all that being said, we basically started, I was training people in person and training some online.
Mm.
And she kind of got into the fitness kind of space as well. She had this massive audience. She was getting people asking her to coach them. And
Yeah.
so she was like, hey, you know the business stuff and you're my brother and you're already doing some of this. It doesn't make sense to start competing companies. Like, why don't we
Yeah.
just join forces? And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. So we ended up starting the BAM Coalition, and yeah, I don't know if I'm skipping like too far ahead in time because obviously
No.
there
No.
was a
No.
lot in between, but
Yeah. Definitely. I think even just from that, I think from listening to that, I actually hear some similarities. I think to an extent with Aaliyah. Obviously, you've met her now,
yeah.
and it's almost just like slight difference, because it seems like, I don't know, if when Addison started lifting, were you like, oh, like I can see her, like, potential Instagram growth or social media growth, or was it more like, just, let's see what happens, and then when it did happen, then you're like, okay, we got to take advantage of this, like, first of all?
Well, for me, I was watching all of these. Uh, I was watching all of these women that just like got into lifting or got into social media and just blew up these massive
Mm.
audiences. So I was
Yeah.
like telling her, hey, I'm trying to do this thing,
Yeah.
but from what I'm looking at, it
Yeah.
seems like it's a little bit easier for women to do it. So like if
Yeah.
you go on here and you start posting and be consistent and you show your journey, there's a
Yeah.
really good chance that you are going to blow up way faster and way larger than I ever could. And
Yeah.
that's what happened within like 3 weeks after me posting for like a year of consistent, like
Yeah.
within 3 weeks or something, she was like massive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of was my honest like thought process is you have a way better chance. Like you just need to go just post.
Yeah. No, I think so. It's almost like you were doing like the trailblazing. You've done like, obviously, it's different. Obviously, the Instagram for women and Instagram for men is different, especially in the fitness space, because obviously
Yeah.
it's been for a longer time. Obviously, the guys are muscles. It's been a kind of newer thing with social media, etc. So it's definitely more competitive, and it's almost like it seems like you're like trailblazing. Had to pick up some hard lessons, and then guess what? You have the blueprint. If you want to start, let me give you this, because it's actually funny and slightly similar is that I was doing already social media for like 4 years before I met Aaliyah. And when
Yeah.
I met her, like she was just gymming kind of just because, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I saw her and I was like, look, just trust me on this, because I've done this for years, you know what I'm saying? I've tried extremely hard, posts every single day for years. You have something where if you just did this, watch, I'm just I know it's going to happen, you know what I'm saying? And then
Yep.
it's kind of similar thing, like, she had no interest in doing it, but then she's like, okay, I'll do it, you know what I'm saying? And then next thing you know, like, you fall in love with the process, and I don't know, then skyrocket and stuff. But talk me through how it's almost like, so right now, from my understanding of you, you're very much the operator. You are, taking care of fulfillment in your current business, and also like, you've done the sales calls, etc. And like, very businessy, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
so the fitness side, you know what I mean, is, for example, in the back end of the business right now with your sister, you're doing the sales calls, etc. So it's like, instead of, maybe you could see that there's like different strengths, you're like playing to
Mhm.
your strengths, she's playing to her strengths, and like combines together. Like, was that like hard for you at first in a way, or was it like kind of natural, like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna get way more return because this is my expertise, and then this is like symbiotic, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it is difficult, and I think especially as guys, we have a certain amount of kind of just an undertone of some ego,
Mm.
um, and really what I mean by that is like that. So when Addie did take off, and Aaliyah might have and Addie will tell you this herself, but Aaliyah might have experienced some similar stuff. When Addie took off, it was not an audience that was wanting to buy coaching from her, right? It's all
Okay.
guys that were
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
thirsting over whatever. And so initially it was like, okay, well, we need to. This is great because it's building up an audience,
Mm.
and there will be some girls like trickled in there, obviously, as well, but it wasn't people that were buying coaching. So even though I had 1,000 followers to her 25, 50, 75,000,
Mm.
we were making more money through my account than we were from hers for a long time.
Yeah,
Because everybody that was following, people were buying from me because they had just been watching me slowly over the course of my journey, versus a massive influx of people that don't really know you, but they just like see your physique
yeah,
and are just interested in like looking at your physique more, or maybe just watching like your kind of hype style stuff.
yeah,
um like those people aren't going to buy. So for a while it was, she kind of she would bring a lot of eyeballs into it, but then we would get on unqualified sales calls for a long time, and we went through every phase of it. Our first pricing whenever we started working together was $150 a month, which,
yeah.
if you don't know the market for online coaching, that's like, even today, that's less than half of what you should charge.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But we were charging $150 a month to start, and we would get on the sales calls together because like
Okay.
Addie didn't feel comfortable selling somebody. So
Yeah.
we were doing phone calls, which you should be doing Zoom.
Mm.
And we were doing phone calls. We didn't really know a script or how to do anything. We would just talk to the person, like
Mm.
mostly me doing all the talking. Addie would kind of just say hi at the beginning,
Yeah.
and then kind of talk to any specific like girl issues or girl questions that she needed to ask if it was a female. And then we would talk the entire time about what the program looked like, and then
Yeah.
just say like, yeah, so you're scared to pitch your price. It's $150 a month. How does that sound?
Yeah.
And
So
then
all
we would
features,
either
no benefits.
all features. That's
Yeah.
all we were
Yeah.
doing. And slowly we started to realize like, doesn't really make sense for Addie to be on these calls. She's kind of needs to focus on like coaching and content, which is what's bringing people in.
Yeah.
And so that was when it first kind of moved into me taking all of the sales calls.
Mm.
Um, and we just slowly, most all the calls at a certain point, when she started to understand what type of content she needed to post to bring in girls and to bring in the type of person that wanted to work with her. People were getting on calls and they had no idea who I was, no idea even our company name. They just knew they wanted to work with Addison Brindley, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't even know her last name,
Okay. Yeah.
and so it kind of naturally evolved into I'm fighting to kind of say, like, be a second face of this company, when in reality it's going to grow much bigger, go much further. If like we let, Addie's the face of this company, Bakker's
Mm.
kind of like the back end, and we found out that I kind of excelled at that stuff. She excels at the front end, obviously.
Yeah.
And she's a great coach as well. So it's kind of like people see her first, then they work up to where they want to buy, then they talk to me. I'm the one that gets them in the community, gets them excited, and make sure it's the right fit when they come in. And then Addie hands back to Addie for kind of coaching and all that stuff. And since
Yeah.
we've added Jermaine, Jermaine is the same exact way. So they see Jermaine, they come in through his funnel. It's where we already know that it can work without them meeting me ahead of time. We can hop on a
Yeah.
call, and I can sell somebody and get them excited to be a part of something really cool. And so we just plugged and play. We did the exact same thing with him when he joined the company.
Yeah. It's interesting because have you read the book called The E-Myth?
Mm-mm.
It,
No,
it's like
I know of the book, but I've never read it.
I've never read it either, but like I've read enough of it to like understand this concept of like he talks about it's like I think Alex Mosul talks about this. Like when you get into a business, like he talked about like supplements, and he thought, oh, if I just make better like supplements than the other people, then I'm gonna win in business, right? But actually, it's all about sales and marketing, right?
Yep.
And in this one, you think it's about being the best coach, but from me doing it, like it's actually about sales and marketing. You know what I'm saying? Like far more than just like being a better coach. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then the biggest mistake that a lot of people fall into is they have this goal of being like an online coach, but they're spending their entire day marketing and doing sales, and they no longer can actually do what they wanted to do. So like it's almost like you guys have naturally like kind of fit into what I'm saying, like you have the positions for your expertise, and
Mm-hmm.
that's like it seems to obviously be working, and it makes sense.
Yeah, it's kind of paradoxical too, because a lot of people will um, try to start and build a business that is bigger than what they should be focused on at the beginning.
Mm,
And the reality is, if you're really great at sales and marketing, you'll get a bunch, but you're bad at fulfillment, you'll get a bunch
mm,
of people in, they'll buy from you once and they'll cancel, right? Or they'll
yeah,
buy from you once and they'll never buy again because they didn't get what you were so good at selling them.
mm,
If you're really, really good at fulfillment, your business can grow, but it's going to grow at a very, 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 very
correct,
small percentage and rate. You're going to rely on word of mouth, which is
yeah,
word of mouth is good to have, but you're going to be limited by scale because you can't get enough people in to try you out in the first place.
yeah,
So it's almost better to be like decent at marketing and decent at fulfillment, because then you have enough eyeballs to be a little bit dangerous, and then people come in and then they get a good enough experience to justify buying again or staying around for a while, and then you're good, right? But if you have both,
yeah,
if you think of it as like an X and Y axis, if you're great at marketing and you're great at fulfillment and results, like that is
the winning
this
formula.
unlimited scale zone. Yeah.
Yeah. So just going a tiny bit back, like talk me through the mindset then, because it sounds like, again, you almost trailblazing, looking up to people like Max Tune and Christian Guzman. And like, if you see that they have the business side, they're obviously in the gym and they're making content. At what point, did you kind of say, okay, well, it makes sense for me with, the variables in place for me to be more of a back end operator? And like, how was that journey mentally with regards to, yeah, like, as guys, the ego aspect of wanting to you know be like the front facing person, but like maybe realizing, okay, well, that's not how we can get the most out of what we're doing. You know what I'm saying? How was that for you?
Yeah. I mean, it took a little bit. It definitely took a little bit. But I started to see kind of the power in that formula. For example, like I started to understand, the people that were really tapped into the community and have been
Mm,
watching for a while, they knew who I was. They were listening to my podcast. They were consuming my YouTube videos, and I would get on, and I would even have like some people that I would think that they just came in through Addy, but then they'd be like, "No, I know who you are." And I'm
yeah,
like, "Oh, really? How did you?" Like, well, I've seen you on some Addy stuff, but I've listened to all of your podcast episodes. So I'm like, I'm ready to join. And it's like,
yeah,
oh, well, there's that. That's some power, right?
yeah,
Um, and so it's just like, if you want to go far, you got to go together, and if you try to go alone, you're not going to make it that far. And so for me, it was like, I knew that we were going to go further if we worked out together, as far as Addie can continue to build this personal brand and this formula that's working on social media, and I can kind of focus on the things that I'm good at, that she may not. She doesn't really enjoy the business back. She's not going to be the one that's going to get the numbers ready for the accountant. She's not going to be the one that's like doing all the transactions on the business side or managing the softwares, or like she just doesn't get fulfillment from that stuff. And I do enjoy the kind of logical back end, the psychology of building out some of these funnels and formulas and frameworks and things like that.
Yeah.
So it was kind of, I feel like as I got older, it was a little bit less, there's a little bit less, and I still struggle with ego stuff just like anybody, but there's a little bit less like I need to be out there in front of people, and a little bit more of like, no, this is me settling into my role. This is where I can add the most value, move the needle the most in the business.
Yeah.
And if I focus here, we're going to go much further than if I try to be an equal face and get as much recognition. Like that, it just is not going to serve the clients, and it's not going to serve our goals with the company either.
Yeah. I think actually one thing that I've learned, from content, is actually the big misconception. I remember when I first started Instagram, I thought if I have 10K followers, I'm set.
Yeah.
Like that's so many people, like that's the magic number. And, basically I thought like, I'm going to be able to have a money printing machine with 10K followers. And especially with Aaliyah growing in the rate that she did, and then even seeing again, it's not about necessarily the number, but for business purposes, it's all about the quality. It's interesting you say that, because I guess like the ego, like I guess a younger version of myself who didn't understand the quality aspect, they just think the bigger number, the better. But you can't have one without the other, because as I was saying, if you have all top of funnel stuff and no one can convert, well, then actually you have nothing. As opposed to you could have 10 people, and for online fitness coaching, if all those 10 people were warm as can be, that's better than like a million that are like super cold. You know what I'm saying? So it's actually like when you're combining them, like, do you think that you find fulfillment? Because when you're actually interacting with the customers, do you find that, it's almost like, imagine every follower is like a potential golden nugget. And so if, for example, the top of funnel content is like warming them up, and then like when it gets to near the bottom, maybe listen to your podcast or that kind of stuff, and you're cracking the golden nugget. And then when they're in the back end, you're again like nurturing the golden nugget. Like if anything, that's like the most valuable part, because like, like how have you found, does that kind of resonate with you, or like, and how have you found that?
Yeah, I mean, it's to address your first point there. We found follower count doesn't mean anything with income. It doesn't. I have, I don't even 5,200 followers, I think, and my businesses have done over 3.5 million online. And we've had coaches that have come in that have over 1 million followers that do 15K per month. And we have a coach on the platform right now that has 8,000 followers that does 300,000 a month. Like that's it. Follower count means nothing. Now, do you get more shots on goal if you have more followers? Yes, because you just have more eyeballs that you can kind of play with or market to or whatever. So you typically do get more shots on goal, but as far as like a direct correlation to income, it doesn't mean anything. But I think it's to answer, like, that's why we built what we built with AR, AR Funnel, the kind of software company, is because most online coaching businesses are just letting so many leads and opportunities, so many shots on goal. I've been using that phrase a lot. Like kind of fall through the cracks because they're using all of these kind of scattered systems. They might have like Typeform for their application form, Calendly for their calendars, Kajabi for any courses. They're using DocuSign over here. They're using Stripe over there. They're using PayPal over here. They're getting people to Zelle them as well. Like it's just a big scattered mess. And so, but the problem is there's nothing that, like, when someone applies, but they don't book a call with you, for example, there's no nothing that you just got an application and then nothing happened. The person didn't get an email from you. They didn't get a text from you. They didn't get prompted to book a call because there's no systems from Typeform telling Calendly, hey, this person needs a book. We need to go try to get them to, like, there's nothing, right? And that's just from 2 of the systems out of the 6 or 7 that I just listed. And so when we built AR, it was with that in mind of the back end, the net, the bucket. I think when last time you and I talked, I was talking about the bucket that people are going to fall through. There's going to be some people that are so eager and so ready to go that they'll buy from you today. But most people are going to come through a lead magnet or a certain post or follow you, and then they're going to kind of just fall into your bucket. And if you have an actual bucket, then later on you can nurture everybody that's in this bucket, all those golden nuggets, as you were saying, and you
Yeah.
can end up converting them later on. But
Yeah.
if they
Yeah.
fall through the crack and there's nothing to catch them, they just fall into the ether, and you
Missed
just lose
opportunity.
that person forever. That's an opportunity that's a shot on goal you never get to take.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the idea there. I don't know if that,
Yeah,
properly answers your
definitely.
question.
And just a thought, you can let me know what you think of this. In the gym, there'll be people that literally, as they say, they can look at a dumbbell and they grow.
Yeah.
And there's other people that, like, I'd say have decent genetics, but like I've definitely researched a ton, like joined forums, what I'm saying, like memberships, etc., to like learn as much as possible because, to get the most out of, what I'm doing.
Yep.
It's funny. It's like sometimes the people, for example, on social media, then they get the easiest, like, leads, etc. They don't realize the value of the leads. But
Mm-hmm.
maybe like, from your own journey when you were doing the online fitness coaching, did it come from a perspective like, okay, well, it was harder in a sense to get these leads. And so you've like found a way to almost bulletproof, like, every lead is, going to be nurtured. If they don't, they're immediately warm. And that mindset is almost like something that might have been hard at the time is actually a blessing, because now if you apply that to, like, again, when there's tons and tons of leads coming in, now
Take it
like
for
you're
granted.
converting way more. Is that resonate with you, or?
Yeah, no, 100%. The first time, because we built AR Funnel, like the first software that we've launched. We're launching two more now, but the first software that we launched, we built that on Go High Level. It's not a secret. We tell people that all the time, but the software is called Go High Level. Now
CRM. Yeah.
how we put it together and how we built it, and the 18 funnels and the 20 workflows and the hundreds of emails and texts that are customized for online fitness coaching. That's what's valuable about buying it from us versus going and getting your own Go High Level account. So we don't hide that it's a Go High Level company. But
Yeah.
the first time that I ever saw Go High Level, I was like, oh, this is how they're doing it. This makes sense, right? This is how these companies that are doing 50K a month, 100K a month, I'm hearing these crazy numbers, and I'm like, why does it feel like we're struggling to keep up at like 3K? Like, what? How is this? How? And I see this software, and I'm like, oh, that just opened up my mind to what people are doing.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of pursued that, and that's what kind of birthed AR as a company.
Yeah. I mean, actually, I've heard of Go High Level, and I understand like the like the fundamentals of a CRM.
Yeah.
But I guess, like, so from my understanding, because Jermaine actually showed me, it is just the idea that basically everything is like caught in a web. Instead of
Yeah.
it just falling through the cracks, like you have the leads, every email address, every phone number, everything, and it's all in one place. And therefore, like, you have clear workflows. Maybe it tells you what to do at certain times, and it
Yeah.
tells you maybe times to follow up. So basically, you have no like guesswork. You don't have to keep it all in your brain. It's out there. Is that kind of
Correct. Yeah. I mean, it's all your DMs are even in there as well. So like if you see someone like doing comment the word, coach, and I'll
the
send
mini
you
chat?
over info, and like, yeah, it's like a mini chat type of thing, but that's, you don't even need mini chat. You can just use AR. You can just use Go High Level.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's exactly what all the biggest coaching companies are using. And, at this point, most of them are on our platform, but it's, you can either put it together with duct tape with a bunch of different systems, or you can put it takes a while, but you can put it together on a platform like ours where it's all cohesive,
Integrated.
right? There's no Calendly, and like there's an integrated, like built-in calendar system that's talking to your application system, that's talking to your DocuSign style system, and it's like, but it's all housed in one thing. You're not paying for multiple memberships. You're just paying for one software that does all of it.
Yeah. And then talk to me about how you came to build the app in the first place. Like, were you someone that had the expertise of, like, building software as a service? And then, like, you're like, okay, this AR funnel makes sense. Or from the sounds of it, it's maybe more like there was a problem and you tried to solve the problem, and then you came up with a solution and you just learned things along the way to figure it out. Like, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which of those was it?
The first time I ever saw Go High Level was in a mentorship that Addie and I had signed up for. So that was the first time that I had seen Go High Level and kind of seen like the power of what it could do.
Yeah.
So I had it through that for a while, and then started to realize as I realized like what this was actually built on, because they had their own name for it and everything, I started to realize like what this was actually built on, how customizable it was, that I could build anything that I could possibly want. I didn't have to know any coding. That was really big for me because I don't know any coding. I had one coding class in college and I didn't learn like very much from it at all.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was kind of like being introduced, like seeing it for the first time, and then kind of like drawing the conclusion of like, oh, this is what this looks like. Here's what's possible. You've just got to go learn it. And so from there, you know, YouTube's your best friend. I met my now business partner, Mike,
Yeah.
and he had like his own kind of background in a massive like e-commerce companies that he had ran, and he kind of put his spin on, you know, here's some e-com strategies that I think would work really well for like a lead magnet perspective. And so it kind of just combined like his ideas with my technical skills and ideas. And it kind of just birthed this thing, which became AR Funnel. And, you know, now we have 350 active coaches on the platform across the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is pretty, you know, it's definitely a substantial feat. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And then would you say, just going back to the content, right? When you're talking about, you know, for example, you being the person that, you know, seems to have, you know, with the bottom of funnel, learned a substantial amount. How has, for example, starting your own podcast and creating content for so many years now developed you as a person? And what do you think are the biggest lessons you've learned about content? Like the misconception about, oh, you know, the numbers, you know, for example, it's about the quality, not the quantity.
Yeah. I mean, I think it really is just that last part that you said, just understanding that it is about the quality, not the quantity. You know, it seems like the stuff that I put the least amount of effort into, or the just most random stuff that I post, or relationship content, it like always does the best. You know, I can post a piece of content that I'm like, you know what, someone could listen to this one thing and make 10 grand a month. Like, and I'm super excited. Like, this is going to go crazy. And then like 300 people will see it, you know, but I'll post some like goofy clip of my wife and I, or just picture of my wife and I, and like it'll go 10, 20, 30,000 people will like it and share it and all this. And I'm like, man, like I wish it was reversed. Like obviously I want people to see me and my wife and like the goofy side too, but you know, I want the content that I think is going to impact somebody to get out there. So for me, it's just about showing up consistently on social media, because what I do know and what I've learned through all the different, I started out in a lot of product-based businesses, and then now everything that I do is service-based. What I've learned is you never have any clue how many people are in your sales cycle, like in some form of if you think about it as a cycle, it's like I just found out that Gone exists, and then like I'm, you know, regularly consuming his content, and then like I'm considering working with
like
him,
placing
and
the
then
funnel, you know, kind of.
and it's just like a big like kind of pie chart of just like this is the cycle. You never have any idea how many people, unless you have a CRM, right? But even then, you never have any idea how many people that are following you or watching your content. Those posts that I post that might get 300 views, I guarantee you those 300 people that saw it are more tapped in than anybody else that follows me. You know, out of 5,300 people, that's the percent that's like die hard consuming everything. Like, you know, the few hundred people that watch my stories, those are the people I could get to buy something. If I asked right now, if I had to make $5,000 today, I would post, and those would be the people that would buy from me. So just thinking of it as like it only saw 300 people, that's really kind of a crappy perspective to have, because if you were talking in a room, like 300 people would be a lot to kind of talk to. You know, we've all seen those kind of memes and stuff of like, here's what 300 people looks like. Here's what 100 here, or 1,000. Here's what 10,000. Like it's massive, right? And so understanding that even though something might not do well, like you and I talked about, you know, a couple weeks ago, the ego, right? If you can remove that from it, of like, this didn't get 100,000 views, man, I'm washed, man, this isn't gonna, like, what am I gonna do now? It's those 100,000 views, most of the time, something that goes viral, unless you just struck gold, is going to be something that isn't, those 100,000 people are not going to buy from you either anyway, right? Because this was a funny piece of content, or this was a controversial piece of content, or whatever. But the stuff sometimes that gets 300 views, I don't know what just happened to my camera, stuff that just gets 300 views, you might get 30 applications from something like that. And I don't know about you, but I'm much more concerned with growing my bank account rather than growing my ego or my following.
I mean, you know, optimize for the outcome. I mean,
Exactly.
talk to me about your philosophy on value over views, because I think if I heard this a few years ago as well, maybe my ego still wouldn't be able to process it properly, but I love that and it makes a ton of sense. So I think if
Mhm.
you share that, like, it will definitely help anyone listening.
Yeah, I think it's just about, if you always, it's, my business partner talks about needing to be, you don't need to be like a bunch of steps above whoever you're trying to sell to. You really need to be like 1 to 3 steps ahead of them to be able to
Mm,
sell something of value to that person behind you.
yeah,
So the easiest thing to do for most people is think like, okay, what did I look like 3 steps ago, right? Or 3 stages ago?
yeah,
For me in particular, I was a much younger entrepreneur. I had no idea how to run a team. I had no idea how to scale a company. I knew how
yeah,
to run businesses. I knew how to sell. I knew how to do, but the things that I'm doing now with running a 15-person company that you know does a few million a year, like that's a completely different world to
mm,
live in. So if I'm making content and I'm trying to make it to the version of me that was 3 stages prior, I'm going to talk about, more general or more kind of like lower level entrepreneur things that I wish that version of me would have understood: how to hire, right? How to, sell through your stories or sell through your content, how to implement AI to not have to hire as quickly, how to keep your costs low, how to have, life just balance in general. What does it look like with the ups and downs, and what are you going to experience with ups? Like I'm talking about that stuff because that helps the version of me that was 2 or 3 versions prior.
yeah. I think that resonates with me for sure, because I've had this thing in my mind, and I think it comes from, I think it is fundamentally a good thing, because, maybe on social media or things, you're consuming content of people that are obviously ahead of you. Otherwise, why are you kind of consuming their content, trying to learn from people? But then there's this feeling that, oh, well, if I'm never at their level, well, I'm not their level. So, I can't provide any value. But then actually, you're just not looking at the people maybe a couple steps behind or where you just were. And again, you don't have to be at this, like, the peak of the mountain. You can help someone climb, a bit, who's a bit further down. And I
Yeah.
think that is something that is actually very powerful, because sometimes you think you need to be at, like, the end of the entire journey, know every answer to every question to help to give value. But obviously that's not the case.
Yeah. That's 100% accurate. And I mean, there was a time I told you about the guys that I looked up to, like Christian Guzman and Max Tuning and some of them. There was a time like I was like, okay, I got to start now. And I remember whenever I started, I was doing the YouTube thing, the vlogging and all that stuff. And I remember thinking, man, I'm so far behind these guys. Like they were so
Yeah,
early. I'm so late. Like, I don't know if it's even possible to do that anymore. And
yeah,
that eventually that kind of made me in college, like talk myself out of continuing on with YouTube and stuff. And it's funny because now I look back at some of those like college vlogs and stuff I did. I was getting like a couple hundred views a video, and
mm,
now I'm like, man, a couple hundred people were tapping into my long form content back then.
yeah,
Like that was such a massive opportunity, like a ball dropped. And that's 7 years ago now, where I was doing that type of thing. It's
yeah,
like how far could I have made it if I had stayed with just like that? Obviously I took a different path, but it's
yeah,
easy to look at somebody that's way ahead of you, and you're going to pick one of two paths. You're either going to say, wow, that's inspiring, I bet I could do something like that, and you're going to go chase it, understanding that your journey is going to look different, take a different amount of time, have different hurdles and different successes than theirs. Or you can look at it and be like, wow, I'm already too far behind and I'm discouraged and there's no chance I'll ever get there, and stop. Like
yeah.
that's your two paths. So if you're going to lay those out in front of me, I'm going to take one every time.
Yeah, I think something that I know a lot of men, me included, struggle with, and it's like the difference between, and this is why one of the main reasons I wanted to start a podcast is because, like, the real conversations, like, I've had this one thing where whenever I meet people and they've never seen me before, I have a conversation with them and they say, "Man, like, you're nothing like what I thought you'd be like," because usually maybe I'm in the gym and I have more like serious face, etc. And it's like, as it links to the content, because if you have like a photo or video, they don't know your personality. It's, again, just top of funnel, right?
Yep.
But one thing that maybe you could tell me about in your journey, because I know Hormozy talks about having like a 2 to 6 year rocky cutscene. You know what I'm saying? All the
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, you know what I mean? And like, well, I feel like I'm still in that phase. And for me, one thing that, like, I want to do more, because I know, like, one day, if I'm not going to stop, I'm going to look back at this time and be like, yeah, like, I was going hard. You know what I'm saying? Like, but like, I don't want to almost share the downs, because I'm like, I don't know. It's like this the block between being vulnerable, but I'm a human being, and anyone close to me, that's like, you don't resonate with someone because they're this like perfect person. That everyone's human,
Yeah.
right? Maybe you could share some of, like, the tougher times in your journey, and like the uncertainty, or like making that big leap to move to a big city, like how did you navigate that, and did you have like a lonely chapter, so to speak, or what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things there. I to start off, I think it's hard to understand that you're in that kind of cutscene while you're in it.
Mm.
But it is, I still feel like I'm in that, dude. I'm still, working a ton and grinding this stuff out. And, you set these like goalposts. And I think that's important to note as well. You set these goalposts and you always end up moving the goalposts.
My dad always says that. He always said that.
Always.
Yeah,
It's that idea of like the hedonic treadmill, right?
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
I remember my goal forever was I want to make $10,000 a month. And I
yeah.
wanted to do that before I got married. Like I promised my wife, like, we're going to do, like, I'm going to get there. I promise. And the month before we got married, I hit it. And I
Yeah.
was like, I remember thinking like I was going to hit that and then feel like accomplished, like good.
You're
And
like,
then,
let me get to 20, let me get to 30,
yeah.
or I
And
don't
then
know.
the
Yeah,
next month it's like, you start off at 0 again and you're like, okay, well, 10, the next time you hit 10, it doesn't feel near as good.
yeah.
It's like, it's lessened. It's kind of, but you keep doing that and and so it's important to note that if you are a driven, high achieving, like, individual, there's going to be some version of that. And you have to kind of know how to reel yourself in, or reward yourself, like do something special to celebrate milestones and keep yourself going. So it's not all just constantly grinding, your nose on the grindstone.
Mm.
But, like whenever I first, back in college, like my senior year, okay, this was my schedule to just give you an idea of what things looked like for me. I've told you I was training people in person. I got offered a job to come run marketing for this like group of supplements, and it was actually it was a supplement company. They called themselves a supplement company, but they were doing like some THC stuff, some CBD stuff. They just wanted someone that understood marketing and sales at,
Mm.
in 2020 or whatever, whenever that was, 2021, no, 2020. They wanted someone that understood marketing and sales. They knew I had been in the space and I had done like a lot of, kind of my own social media stuff and marketing and whatnot. So they brought me in. That was while I was in college full time. So I got offered this full time position to come work for them. I was like, I'm not quitting school, so I need to keep going in school. But they offered me, it was like 40K to per year, to like a salary to come work for them. I was already training people in person. So my day, what it would look like is I would get to the gym that I was training people out of at 5 a.m. And I would either, if I had clients, I would train my clients for 2 hours. Okay. Then shower and go to the office my
Yeah,
full-time job, and I would go work there.
yeah,
If I didn't have someone to train in the morning, then I would get there, I would do my workout, and then I would go to the office and, work there. And so then I would go in between, right? My classes throughout the day, have 1 or 2 classes a day. I would drive to the school, do my class, drive back to the office. Right. And so by the end of, 5 p.m. or 6 p.m., I've probably taken a couple of classes during the day.
yeah,
I've been up since 4:30 a.m. I've already trained a couple of people, maybe even got in my training session. And then 5 or 6 p.m., I would go straight back to the gym to train 1 or 2 more people and or get in my own session or my own cardio at the end. And
yeah,
that would be, 8 o'clock, I'd be leaving the gym. So first got to the gym at 5 a.m., leaving the gym for the final time at 8 p.m. Then I would go
yeah,
home and I would fulfill orders for my fitness equipment company. I would package them up, whatever orders there were for the day, print out the labels, put in some cards, write a thank you note, put a label on it, take it to the post office and drop it off because they're always open after hours. I'll just put it in like the Dropbox thing. So then 9:30, 10 p.m. is when I would finally like be done for the day.
damn,
And I would have homework or hang out with my now wife, girlfriend at the time. Like
yeah.
that was my day every single day.
So like basically
And
working like 3 to 4 equivalent full-time jobs kind of
yeah,
thing. Like, yeah,
and dude, I didn't, like, looking back, it feels insane to be like, what was I? But it was just the season of life that I was in. Like my wife now, she'll tell you, like, I don't know how he was doing it because he always made me, like, never neglected me, was just hanging out. But that was just the phase of life that I was in. And then
yeah,
when college ended and we moved, or she took a job in Dallas to go back to Dallas. And
yeah,
I'm like, I really like this girl. I kind of want to follow her. I had just kind of like mentioned at my full-time job, because I figured I was going to graduate and work there for a few more years. And I had mentioned that she took a job in Dallas, and they're like, well, if you're going to move, like we'll do whatever we can to keep you. Like you can go remote if you want. And I was like, okay, well then that makes that really easy. I'm moving to Dallas. They give me a little raise to go to Dallas and be able to live. And so I'm by myself in a single bedroom apartment. My expenses just tripled overnight. I went from paying $400 a month in rent to $1,500 by myself in a single bedroom apartment. She was working like a crazy job. So she was I could only see her like a little bit of Friday night and then part of the day Saturday. And that's all.
Wow.
I knew nobody in Dallas. I was by
Yeah.
myself for the entire rest of the week. I have my own schedule. I'm alone. I'm not working with anybody day to day anymore. And I'm running this new like supplement company, which was like, we were one of the first people to do, the second one to ever do creatine gummies. And
Yeah.
we had like a really unique kind of take on it and everything. We were in 30 stores and everything was going great. And I thought that was going to be my ticket, man. Like I thought that was going to be the business. Well, these guys that I had been working for, the supplement manufacturer, and we had launched this new company, this new kind of brand and product together. I ended up finding out that there was some kind of stuff happening behind the scenes with money. And I ended up finding out that the brand that I was growing was funding the low performing brands. And I ended up finding out there was just like some stuff happening behind the scenes. And by the time I started to ask questions about it, they're like, hey man, you've got 2 weeks and we're going to cut you loose. And I'm like, wait, what happened? Like everything was going good. We're in 30 stores. We're always sold out. Like what's happened? And they're like, yeah, it's not personal. And so I don't know what, they were in a poor financial situation, and we weren't making enough money for them to fund everything else. And so it didn't make sense to continue. So then I'm like, okay, now I'm at a crossroads. The coaching company's not making enough to kind of pay my bills. Do I need to refresh my resume and I got to go get a job for a while? Like, what do I do? And so I'm like, I have, maybe a month, maybe 2 months rent like left to just like, I got to figure something out in the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Figure out. Yeah.
And my girlfriend at the time, wife now, she kind of like sat me down and she was like, hey, I want you to know that whatever you decide to do, if you decide to go chase something, like go all in on something, and you don't have to go get a job. Like I got you. I will take care of you. I know you're going to figure this out. Like she offered that. And like on one hand, as a man, you're like, wow, like I do not want her to have to do that. Right. But on the other hand, it's like, whoa, she's 10 toes down for me, for my vision. Like, I can't believe that somebody would offer to do that.
That's real trust and belief. Like, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so thankfully ended up finding another opportunity and never had to go kind of like, go get the corporate job or anything like that. And then the rest is kind of history. AR started within 2 months. BAM started scaling and everything. And we, grew the coaching business as well. But there's definitely been like massive ups, massive downs, and it's a part of it. It really is. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. In fact, it rarely ever is. It just kind of gets better and better over time if you don't quit, which is another thing that you said that I think is really important on highlighting. There was a lot of situations where somebody could have ducked out in my journey and been like, this is not worth it. I don't want to work 17 hours a day. I don't want to, deal with all the stress. I don't want to be responsible for paying other people or making sure that they're good in their financial situations. Like it'd be way easier to go get a 9 to 5 and do something like that and know that there's something coming in every single month. But if you don't quit, it's just like in the gym. It'd be unreasonable to believe you're not going to grow if you don't work hard, train every day, eat the right stuff, and and stay consistent. Hard work and consistency. It'd be unreasonable to believe you're not going to succeed or grow or get better. It's the same thing in business.
There's a Steve Jobs quote, and he says something like, basically, you need to love, your business, in entrepreneurship, because any rational person would quit after a certain amount of time. So it sounds like from these stories, I mean, at the end of, the creatine situation, gummy situation, I actually heard a bit of that on the Mike Croson podcast. But it's like there was uncertainty for 2 months, like real uncertainty. You didn't know what's going to happen. And then by serendipity, like you met him, you become business partners, and look at the difference. But it's like, if you had, put in the towel before, given serendipity the chance to kind of manifest, like, yeah, who knows what would happen. But it sounds like, yeah, that entrepreneurship kind of spirit of like, yeah, you just loved it enough that even when you had that uncertainty, like, you just had to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's just a choice, man. It's I know a lot of people that have ducked out of entrepreneurship. I know a lot of um people that have persisted through against all odds and then come out on the other side like incredibly well.
Yeah.
It really is just you can't lose if you don't quit.
And how do you see? I've always been curious about, like, you know, because from an online coach, at least for a lot of people's perspectives, like, their passion is the gym, and obviously online coaching is a way to, like, demonstrate their expertise, help other people maybe a similar position, or at least, nearby situation, and like help them. But like, they're not trying to they're not focused on entrepreneurship in the way that, like, you are. For example,
Mhm.
like, maybe this would be a fair comparison, but I'd like to hear what you think. So, like, there's a difference between, like, doing enough in the gym to be healthy and stay in shape versus, like, pouring everything to be a competitive bodybuilder. Like,
Yeah.
would you say, like, again, there's a difference between having a business to, like, just live, you know what I'm saying? And then actually going hard at a business, basically trying to build the biggest, best business you can be. But then also, best is subjective. Like, how would you describe AR Funnel with regards to, how do you see it? Like, do you see it as trying to make it as big as possible, or is, obviously, again, is bigger always better? Like, if you have quality, then what's kind of the vision there?
Yeah, it's not relating it back to online coaches. It is not this is a conversation I've had with a lot of coaches, is people, because of all these mentorships that are out there, all of these kind of gurus and stuff in there that are out there, and there's a lot of really good ones, right? But everyone feels this kind of like underlying pressure to hit the 10K month, to hit the 15, the 20, the 50, the 100.
Mm,
And there's a good and a bad side of that. Is we see two different types of coaches. We see coaches that love the business side, like more of what I would categorize me,
mm,
and we see coaches that love coaching. But all of them are pressured to try to grow the biggest, baddest, most successful cash flowing company
because
that
bigger
they can
equals
possibly can.
better. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
And so I've seen coaches that have grown a business that they've hated, like multiple six, sometimes even seven-figure businesses that they just tear down and walk away from because they hate it. And they
Mm,
lost everything that they first enjoyed, which was coaching.
mm,
Because at a certain point, you can't coach anymore if you grow a certain size of business, unless you just, business by design, you're building it in a way where you bring in a CEO and a COO and all those things to somehow insulate yourself as a coach.
yeah,
Most of the time, growing your business means removing yourself from the day to day.
yeah,
And so the coaches that more so love business than anything, and the coaching is just a vehicle for them to be able to run a business, they really enjoy scaling. But the coaches that love coaching, they grow a business that they hate. And I mean, we have seen coaching businesses that'll do 50, 75, 100 grand a month. And the main entrepreneur is only taking home 10, right? 15, maybe. And so in reality, you would be better off coaching by yourself and
mm,
making 10 or 15K a month, because you have no stress. You
yeah,
have a relatively low client load. You have
yeah,
less stuff going on day to day. You have some work-life balance. You might only be working with 20 clients,
yeah.
right? And you don't have employees, people that are like relying on you. You don't have these massive systems you have to manage. You're just doing what you love every day, making the same amount of money at like a 95% profit margin.
Yeah, I guess, just to be clear, this is because, like, if you have, your VAs, and you have a sales guy now, and then you have like a fulfillment person you're paying,
You
and
have
then like
five or
another
six assistant
coach,
coaches. Yep. You
and
have an
then
ops
you're
person.
doing ads, then you're basically, the revenue's increasing, but you have to pay all this money out, and you end with the same amount. It's kind of what you're saying.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Is
Yeah.
a lot of times that the businesses that they scale up, they're making the same, if not less money, because of all the extra stuff and overhead that they take on to grow, that it was needed in order to grow the business to that level.
Yeah. And how do you see AR, like, fit into that kind of paradigm?
You're saying like what if I'm evaluating AR as far as
Yeah.
like
Do you see it
fulfillment?
as, like, for you, like, because you're more, maybe on the business side, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
like, I'm taking from you saying that you do want to just grow the team, and obviously, quality team, but then get more coaches on, you know what I'm saying, and build obviously the top line too, or is it the bottom line? top line revenue. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then that kind of sounds like what you're thinking about.
I love the game of business. I would say probably a year ago, you asking me that question, I would have been like, yeah, I just wanted to do as much as possible. But we went through a massive phase this year. There was times this year where the business making over 100,000 in a month, the business made less than like 8 grand, 10 grand. And which is insane, right?
Because
Now,
of that exact thing, ads
yeah,
and
same exact thing. Just scaling up your expenses to try and like force growth as quick as possible versus understanding that you still want to make profit. You still want to be profitable. And so we went through a massive phase of kind of scaling things to be more profitable. And now our profit margins are incredible. There's way less stress. We've got the cash to withstand pretty much anything. And we're just in a really, really great spot now.
Yeah.
But it is easy to get caught in that, but it was also the most like stress that I've ever experienced while we were pushing for the vanity metrics. Like so much stress. From like just constantly having new team members, constantly having to redesign systems, happy, unhappy clients, too many clients to be able to serve, too few team members, then too many team members. Like it was just all over the map. And so for us, slowing things down, focusing on profit, focusing on fulfillment day to day, that helped out a ton to get back on kind of the right track to where
I
it's
think
like,
you mentioned in the podcast I just referred to earlier that is this the one where you're working 70 hours a week and you're kind of thinking at this point in time, like, man, like I've built a prison that I'm in, which I don't even like. And so like, you're
yes,
thinking, I love business. Like, what am I doing? Basically suffering so much, but not in a good way, so
yeah,
you're like,
it was
course correcting. Yeah.
yeah,
I guess throughout this process, I'm interested to know like how you've learned along the way, because would you say you've learned mostly through like just obviously doing the work, or like are you an avid book reader? Are you an avid, obviously you make your podcast, but do you listen to a ton? Like I'm kind of curious, like how, obviously you've done some mentorships, but kind of tell me like how you'd say you've got to where you're at with regards to knowledge.
Yeah, I think personally, I learn more doing than I do anything else. So for me, it's like actual reps. I'm not someone that can kind of like hear theory or hear, hey, here, this is how you do something without me visually being able to see it or me being able to do it alongside of learning it.
Okay.
I watch a lot of YouTube. So like if I'm ever doing cardio or, walking or even every meal, like I'm watching YouTube or something, right? Consuming something visually.
And is that like learning content, or what I'm saying, like
A lot of,
educational?
especially during cardio, it's always educational. It's always like a lot of AI stuff now because
Okay.
I'm just like, I'm very convicted that everyone needs to learn AI at a high level or else it's just going to be bad for you, for your family, for everything.
Yeah.
So a lot of AI content now. I read a lot of, I've kind of gotten out of this now as far as a consistent habit, but I've read a lot of books, like a lot of books about business, personal development. I don't really like nonfiction, or I don't really like fiction books. I do a lot of like personal development type stuff. And then podcasts, what I find, it's kind of funny because there was a season where I was nonstop consuming like professional development and like tech and in business YouTube videos. And
Give me names. I just,
so I mean, Hormozi's stuff, I've consumed hundreds of hours of Hormozi's stuff. Podcast wise, I love Modern Wisdom. He's just such a deep thinker, and I just love the guests and stuff that he has. Obviously Hormozi's got the Game podcast. There's Diary of a CEO, there's all sorts of things like that. But what I have found is like podcasts, if I'm constantly just forcing stuff into my brain nonstop, books, podcasts, YouTube, and then actually running a business day in and day out where I'm having to learn stuff nonstop, I constantly feel behind and I constantly feel overwhelmed.
Sensory overload kind of thing.
Yes. So more so recently, I've started to listen to like dumb podcasts. And I only let myself, like, while I'm working out.
Dumb podcasts in like just bro chats or something.
Yeah, like comedy podcasts, really. Like,
okay, yeah.
They're, I guess, not dumb, but like funny stuff. Like
No,
not serious. It's more of like an actual entertainment kind of break for me. So
Yeah.
driving to the office, driving from the office. If I'm not on the phone with somebody, then I'm listening to like Theo Vaughn, right? Or
Mm.
Two Bears, One Cave, or just like, Bad Friends or something, just like a funny podcast to just laugh, and kind of
Yeah.
have that inner child type of thing where it makes me feel a lot better than not always feeling like I'm behind. I've got to go implement this. I need to do this. I got to write that down. Like,
Yeah.
gosh, it's overwhelming sometimes how much you can kind of force feed yourself.
No, yeah, I definitely that makes sense. I mean, it sounds like so maybe in the earlier years, kind of maybe where I'm at. Like I listened to definitely a bunch of the Chris Williamson, like this guy Dan Martell, Dara CEO. I like this one guy called David Senra, Founders Podcast. I don't know if you heard this one.
I
You
haven't,
should
no.
definitely listen to it if you haven't. But yeah, but it sounds like right now because of where you're at, like you're in the business, you have employees, like there's tons of stuff happening there. Like you can learn hands on there, and it's like,
Yeah.
why do you need to like read a book? Maybe you could like take one or two things from there, but like you already have enough. You know what I'm saying? Like the
Yeah.
foundation's built, and it's like now you just need to like. And if anything, it sounds like what you're listening to is kind of letting you fill your cup a bit more, because you're
Yeah.
probably pouring so much into the business. And I guess that's another question I had for you is like, how would you say you best fill your cup right now? I'm assuming apart from work, it's probably just like spending time with the wife, but like how have you found over the years to like pour into your cup as opposed to always like, just being on the never ending treadmill, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm really, really, really big on family and friends. So for me, it's, there's various, and I even mentioned it a second ago, like if I'm not on the phone. So
Mm.
I'm a big believer if I'm on the road, I'm just calling people. We all have like random, I don't know if you have, I don't know if other people have this, I guess, but for me, it's like somebody will randomly pop in my head, whether that's a friend, whether that's a family member or whatever. And I'm like, you know what, I should, catch up with that person. And so a lot of times I'll either just call them right on the spot. And it's so weird, dude, because most of the time they're like, dude, I was just thinking about you today.
Mm.
And it's like
Yeah.
just a random kind of like, there's some sort of connection.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but those like I'll call my dad, I'll call my mom, I'll call one of my sisters, call my wife, like I'll call an old friend or a family member. And those conversations are always really great for me to kind of just re-energize myself. Obviously hanging out with my wife, my favorite thing to do, but also making sure that I do have a certain amount of play within work bounds, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Because I really do love business. I love the game of business. I love tech. So I making sure that I always have at least a project, even if it's not something that I'm actually developing for the business, just something that I
Yeah.
can work on that's going to develop my skills for the business. I have to have a certain amount of play that is work related because I do enjoy my work.
Yeah.
So whether that's, waking up on a Saturday morning and then doing 2 or 3 hours of like the more fun stuff just before people wake up or before like my day really gets started.
Yeah.
That's really fun to me. Like I'll come in sometimes on the weekends, like into the office and nobody's here and I can kind of just lock in and do a podcast episode or make some content or work on some just kind of more fun projects or develop some AI stuff. Like that's really fun to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that really fully answers your question, but I try to balance a good amount of like, I think relationships are the most important thing.
Yeah.
And then also making sure that if you don't feel a certain amount of play or enjoyment in what you're doing day to day, find
Mm.
something else to do that you do,
Yeah.
or find a way to enjoy, like twist it a little bit, even if it's not all in productivity, twist it and have some fun, whether
Yeah.
that's just getting a workout in without having to film yourself, maybe in your example of like what you do every day.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess what that makes me think of is, would you say you're someone that approaches work in a sense of like, we're just trying to reach an outcome and like the means, like again, you're kind of saying like whatever way that is, I obviously can enjoy to an extent. Like it's not like you're super dogmatic, like I need to do this, it's like in the gym, imagine someone says you need to barbell squat to grow quads. Another guy's like, the tall guy's like, actually, I just want to leg press, you know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Is that kind of the mindset you're applying, like find the one that works for you?
Yeah, I mean that's what it is with everything. And there's seasons in business. I mean we went through a really tough season earlier this year with just like some government stuff that came out that kind of threw
Mm.
some wrenches compliance wise into what we do day to day. There's seasons where you have to buckle down and do a lot of shit that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of anything, right? It's like being on prep. Like nobody really
Yeah.
enjoys
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
enjoy the structure of being on prep, but nobody really enjoys eating the same
Starving.
things over and over again and being in a deficit and feeling sick all the time and like, feeling skinny or flat or like nobody enjoys that stuff. But sometimes you got to buckle down and do your stuff. Like that's just what it is.
Yeah.
But on in periods where you can introduce some sort of play or enjoyment, I think you have a responsibility to do so, to keep yourself fresh, keep that cup full, and be the best version of yourself.
Yeah, I'm curious. What aspects of business would you say you find the most enjoyment, and they're probably linked to your strengths, but maybe not. But and also, what do you find the most tedious? Like, for example, for online coaches, I don't know if you prescribe this, but like messaging, for example, for a lot of the time, for me, I'm like, damn, bro, I have to do this again. Like, I don't want to do it. You know what I'm saying? But like,
Yeah,
or like sometimes some kind of educational content is like, how many times I'm gonna say what a calorie is? You know what I'm saying? Or
yeah,
that kind of thing. But like there's other things where I'm like super like this podcast stuff. I'm pumped to do it. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like, or maybe like, yeah, longer form content. That kind of thing. Like, what kind of resonates with you inside the business?
For me, I would say from an AR perspective, like I do really enjoy sales calls from like the kind of coaching perspective. I really do enjoy meeting new people, talking to them, understanding their problems, and how we could help them with potential solutions. Um, on the AR side of things, I would have considered myself an idea guy before meeting my business partner Mike, who is like
Yeah,
an idea guy, like nonstop, rapid fire idea guy.
yeah,
And I kind of had to morph into more of like a COO role, so designing our operations, our systems, everything. So I actually really enjoyed the challenge of building out a lot of our systems of such a large company and having to redesign them and rebuild them multiple times. I really did
yeah.
enjoy that. Um,
Well,
I
just real quick on that. I
Yeah,
just thought in my head, like, do you kind of like, would it be equivalent to like, if you're like, I mean, I'm not saying you're making Lego, but when you're making Legos and the kind of feeling of like building it up and like you see the vision coming together, is that kind of like the feeling you get when you're
yeah,
building? Yeah,
yeah. That's a kind of a great analogy for it, because it is like once you start to see something working, and especially since we have such a large team, it's like
mm,
you spend so long just in isolation building something for them to use day to day, just to make their lives a little bit easier, just to make something a little bit more efficient. Like you're
yeah,
just turning tiny dials at this point. um they can obviously, tiny dials in a larger business can have massive, if it makes a 1% difference, that's like
yeah,
1% on $1 million, like that's significant over time, right? 1% on $10 million is even more significant.
mm,
So you're kind of just turning these tiny dials, but you spend 100 hours building something or rebuilding something, and then you get a compliment from one of your team members, like, this is so much easier, this is so incredible, I can't believe that this is working so great. Like that's the type of thing that is really exciting.
yeah,
And so for me, it's been working on some of those projects in isolation, knowing that this isn't the most like sexy thing, right? It's not going to like make us a ton more money today by like flooding us with customers or whatever, but we can now handle a flood of customers efficiently and like properly service them all, right?
yeah,
Or we can, I've been building these 2 new platforms that we're going to launch in a month. And it's like nobody knows really about them or anything. Like it's kind of just been me behind closed doors, like working on it for so long,
yeah,
5 months now, 6 months now, and we're going to launch them. And like, this is what we're building the roadmap of the company on, is the launch of these new platforms. And so it's like, it's building, I think, those massive projects and getting to kind of see the fruits of your labor come out and just get used, I feel like, for me.
yeah. It's like, it sounds like deeper work. It's not like super shallow stuff, like stuff that you can like lock in, like get into a flow state, build it, and then like the fulfillment that comes from like when you see it being in use, those kind of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. And every entrepreneur has to start like this. But the first 2 years of AR, I was so deep in fulfillment. Like I'm talking 30, 40, 50, 60 calls every single week, because I was working with all of our clients. For the
Yeah,
first year, it was just me working with our clients. Like it was Mike doing all the sales, me doing all of the fulfillment.
yeah,
And then like, Felicity came in, and then it was like Felicity taking some of the fulfillment, me still doing 75%. And then now, Felicity taking 50% and me doing 50%. And then we brought in another girl, and then it was like, I'm doing 25%. And then we brought in another person. And then I'm like all of a sudden I have all this time back in my schedule and I got to figure out how to do things that continue. But I'm now removed from more of the day to day to be able to work on the higher level kind of systems that the company needs,
Yeah.
managing the team members, managing the new projects. And so it's a weird breakup in your workflow because you don't necessarily have like meeting back to back,
Yeah.
but it's equally as important, if not more so, to work on that big picture stuff.
Yeah, I think actually the perfect way of saying this is I was just reading The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Have you read that book?
Yep.
And it talks about, the urgent, non-urgent, and important, not important. And it's like the quadrant 2 stuff is the important stuff that isn't urgent. And he says you want to live your life in as much as possible in this section, because you don't want to be doing like the meetings all day that are urgent and you need like the whole day just back to back meetings. If you're in this kind of place, like you're saying, you have time to like build, like your projects that you're launching, but it's not urgent. It's not like you need to do it tomorrow. And that's
Yep.
probably like, I don't know, that sounds like kind of like, yeah, you can work deeply, you can get fulfillment from like pushing yourself. Like it sounds like you get to really like try, but at the same time, like, I don't know, like you're not rushed like to do it tomorrow,
Yeah. Yeah, I know that's and I actually think I made it like halfway through that book. I don't think I actually finished it. But
No,
I
no.
think it's that's a great kind of way to put it is it's always a balance between like high leverage activities and low leverage activities. And
Yeah.
the reality is as you're scaling your business, you got to spend less time on the low leverage stuff and more time on the high leverage stuff. And
Yeah.
that looks different at every single phase.
Yeah. And have you found, I don't know, frustrated? It sounds like the opposite of that would be like, urgent stuff. And that sounds maybe more like the calls to, I mean, if you enjoyed the fulfillment aspect, but like, I'm thinking like, the back to back, like maybe sales calls or like, spending time in the DMs, etc. Like these are tasks that like, they don't take a lot of brain power. You know what I'm saying? They just have to get done. Like, how have you found that when you've been doing these things, like, is it more like, this is just the season again, this is maybe I don't want to do it, or like, did you enjoy it at the time and you feel like you leveled up though, and now you enjoy like the more kind of like mentally strenuous work?
Yeah, it's I mean, I think with anybody that's an entrepreneur, sometimes it's not necessarily like you don't get bored with things, but you do want a certain shock or injection of just like change, or just variance in your day to day.
Yeah.
So I think there was a little bit of that. I now, like I just posted about this earlier this week, but now I miss like getting to just work with coaches as much as I was on a day to day basis because
Yeah.
it's fun. Like you become friends with a lot of those people,
Mm.
and it's
Relationships,
yeah, it's fun talking to them. It's fun hearing what particular challenge that they might have on a daily basis and then helping them kind of overcome that thing and get better and then see the results. It's just like working with a fitness client. You see the
Mm.
results in what happened because you changed this one thing over here and then now their physique or their business looks completely different. So you kind of like appreciate each season as you move through them, I think. Um, but now it's just a different type of challenge, and I do really enjoy that. Currently, I really enjoy this just different phase of challenge. I don't know what the next phase looks like because I've never been there. Like it's uncharted territories, but
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be some new challenge in the next phase that looks completely different and that hopefully is enjoyable in the same way.
Yeah. And how have you found the hiring process and becoming a bit like, again, like not in the super urgent day-to-day tasks? Like, has that process been a steep learning curve? Because yeah, you said earlier on that you can't do it all alone. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
like, it seems like I listened to again the previous podcast of you and Mike, and he was mentioning that like tends to be more of like a lone wolf, but it seemed like you weren't to the same extent. And it's like
Mhm.
you definitely understand the utility of like a team and understand like 1 + 1 = 3 there. You know what I'm saying? So how
Yeah.
has that process been for you? And are you in charge of that? Like, or, what have you learned along that journey? Because I feel like that is like hiring a team is like, that sounds like foreign to me at least, but I know how valuable it is.
Yeah. Hiring is relatively easy. Firing is really hard.
Mm.
Firing is a super difficult thing to do. I do run our team. Now it's like, so me running kind of operations. That's kind of how it's always been. And so like I more so interact with Mike, and then I interact with the team. Now we have Felicity. It's funny because I'm starting to see Felicity like at each stage that I talked about. She kind of came in and started taking over some of the calls. So like as I've kind of been removed and removed and removed,
She's taking the
Felicity's
previous job role.
yeah. So Felicity's doing the same exact thing, and so now Felicity does most of the interactions with our team day to day. And so I get reports on the different, departments. And so Felicity and I mostly meet on, several times a week and talk about how is such and such doing, how is such and such doing. And then I have my own one-on-ones or kind of progress checks with the team members as well. But Felicity is mostly the one that they're like reporting to. So it's kind of been, it is like a weird kind of evolution, but we do a really cool thing that one of Mike's mentors recommended, where everybody that we're thinking about hiring, they have to take like this test called the Strengths Finder. It's by a company called Gallup. And so what we do is we have them take, it's like a rapid fire 40 question test, and you only get like 4 seconds to answer a question. It's something like super fast. You have basically enough time to read the question, quickly read each answer, and it's like strongly agree through strongly disagree. And you don't really get time to think about it. So you can't think about like, what would they want me to answer on this? It's just going to be a knee-jerk reaction, or else the question like gets skipped. So we make everybody take that test, and then we get back like their top 30 something strengths in the order of which they present themselves. And so we start to see like, okay, here's our hypothesis of what we think this role requires. And then we get something back from somebody, and like maybe in the interview they were telling us that they are a very organized person, they're a very motivated person, they're a very positive person, but maybe all those things were very low on their kind of strengths finder. And it's just because in an interview it's easy to say whatever you think the other person's going to want to hear, but in a test like that, it kind of shows you who they are and most importantly, how to communicate with them effectively. So like our whole team has done those steps, and it's actually helped us all out a lot in terms of finding out who is going to be a good fit, but also finding out how to communicate, like inter-team kind of communication, what motivates somebody, and what doesn't motivate them, what might we be trying to motivate them with that just doesn't even respond at all. Who's great at critical thinking and executing stuff, who's not so great at that, but they're good at the strategy side of things, or interpersonal skills. And so that's helped us out a lot in terms of just communication and understanding those people's strengths and weaknesses. Because like one of my top strength is achiever, which basically means you like to check off a box and say like I did something. So for me, you talk about finishing these projects. Whenever I dive deep into a project, it's very hard for me to shut it off. Like especially something that's going to take multiple days, multiple weeks. It doesn't. We recently renovated our house. Like I know if I start painting something at 7 p.m.,
you need to finish it.
Not a good idea for me, because I will paint until 4 a.m. And then just because like I feel so against not achieving, like not being able to check off that box, that toxically, like I'll try to finish it. So it helps out with weaknesses too. We've found.
And what do you think? What's the most interesting things you've learned about your own taking the test?
I think that was a big one. Just understanding that it's, why I get frustrated if I'm on a meeting that I feel like is going nowhere. I'll feel myself like physically starting to get like, what are we doing? Why are we wasting this time? I don't want to talk about this.
Needs to be productive. Go on somewhere.
It's like, hey, can we get off the meeting and like go work? We all know our task. Let's go do something for actually do it. So that's helped me to kind of understand, okay, that's this thing presenting itself in a negative manner. Understanding projects and stuff. Fridays are not a good time for me to start a project unless I'm going to work on it all weekend and sacrifice my weekend. Like it's not healthy for me to do that. It's helped me to understand that I need to build out work blocks throughout the week and not always be so flexible to hop on a call with anybody anytime, because if I have a work block and I am flexible with that, I'll just book over it. And if I don't hold myself to a standard of that, it's helped us out with understanding why, Felicity, for example, everybody loves Felicity. Everyone. Like she doesn't get a negative word said about her ever. And so understanding what her strengths are, it's like, okay, we kind of want to model after these these roles that are going to be working with people, because she's got this kind of formula that people are just like magnetically want to just be her friend. They want to work with her. They don't want to let her down.
Positive, being curious, or like,
she's positive. She's very encouraging. Her strengths are like the interpersonal skills.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So it's a lot of like interpersonal stuff up top, on top of her just being very disciplined as well. Like that's one of her top strengths. So if Felicity says she's going to do something for a client, she does it every single time for the client without fail. see if I can pull, here it is. So like Felicity, for example, her top 5 strengths, she's futuristic, which is like another word for optimistic. She's an achiever, number 2. So like my toxic number 1 trait is her number 2 trait. She's
Yeah.
a learner, so she always wants to learn and get better. She's always consuming stuff, buying courses, whatever.
Yeah.
She's competition, so she wants to be the best at whatever she's kind of doing. And
Yeah.
focus. So Felicity will lock herself away for hours and hours and hours and just like knock out a massive to-do list for people because she said she was going to do it. She's
Yeah.
competitive about doing it well. She wants to achieve it, and she's super optimistic that this is going to be helpful for them. So it's
Yeah.
like, if we can just copy that, if we can find those traits in somebody else, like that's the person we want in a role that's going to be interacting with clients on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So
That's really interesting how like you guys, even for the hiring, it's like that's almost like taking technology, like understanding people's personality types and then like trying to fit them together. I bet you could probably upload them into ChatGPT and say where's the blind spots and where they're going to clash. You know what I mean?
exactly.
But
We've done that before.
what would you say you've learned when it comes to like the people you've worked with in business? You know, you've done a lot on the fulfillment side. What traits have you seen are the most successful, and what traits have you seen the least successful group of people do? Because if you talk with 60 people in a week or whatever, like you I'm sure you get a mental model pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think action over kind of everything else, which goes back to, the analogy I was making earlier about there's going to be 2 paths. It's either get discouraged and decide that you can never do that thing, or be like, oh, cool, this is a great opportunity. I need to go now. I think action taking is the biggest thing, because I'll have people that I've been on weekly calls with for 2.5 years, and they're in the same position that they were in 2.5 years ago. They just like to
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah.
And everybody as coaches will be able to really resonate
Bro,
with that.
I know exactly. You're gonna be like, "Where's this going?" You're gonna
Yeah,
do something like, "Why are we wasting time here?" Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
So there's people like that, and there's people that I talk to every week that I give them one idea or one thing that's like,
one
here's
minute
what you need
go.
to do in your business, and then they'll have already done it an hour after our call, and then by the next call it's like, hey, I did that thing and I achieved XYZ ABC result. It's like, awesome, that's incredible, and you added this much to your business and all that. So action is probably by far the most advantageous trait, I would say, with those people, is just taking reckless action. And then the worst trait I would say is, not to like counteract that too much, but overthinking.
Yeah,
There's people that feel like every variable, everything has to be well within control and 100% perfected before anything changes inside of their business. And a lot of times, by wanting that or needing that, which I can be guilty of as well, it causes you to lose out on opportunities because you didn't take an action or go learn or go fail whenever you could have went and done those things relatively quickly.
yeah. So very much like on the action front, just going before figuring out along the way, and then the other one is like the paralysis by overanalysis kind of thing, like not just being stuck and not doing anything because you're thinking about it the whole time.
Yeah, I saw a quote from, I think his name's Reid Hoffman. I think he's maybe the CEO
Netflix
of
or
I think it was
LinkedIn,
LinkedIn,
maybe.
but it could
Yeah,
have
yeah,
been,
yeah.
yeah. I need to do more research on exactly who he is, but I saw a quote from him the other day, anyways. And it said, "If you're not embarrassed by the first version of the product that you put out, you
Mm.
waited too long." And that made me, I just saw that on Monday, and I was like, you know what, like that's a really good frame for me, because I've been working on these platforms again for 5-6 months, and they're not perfect, but I'm also building them myself from scratch. And it's like, if we wait until it's perfect, like, will we lose the opportunity? Will we just need to put it out there, learn, make sure people know it's a beta, and just go for it.
Yeah.
So
100%. And on that side of the people, right? Just like, because you're saying, like, what are the successful traits of the people you worked with? I'm just curious to know, like, of the people you admire, you know what I mean? Like, maybe after that, I can ask, like, who are like some role models? So you mentioned like maybe like Christian Guzman or like Max Tuning, but like, what traits do you see in people? Maybe on social media, obviously, in person. I'm sure your network is built over time, and like being in entrepreneurship for a decent amount of time, like you've met these people as well. What traits do you admire in people? And which traits do you definitely don't admire in people? Like you admire, respect. Which ones don't you?
yeah, I mean, for me, it's the 2 things that I value the most in a relationship is honesty and loyalty. So if I ever see, even if it's a colleague, if I ever see anybody screw somebody else over or do something unethical or sell something unethical, that's an immediate turnoff. I have zero interest in ever kind of being involved in anything that person ever has to do ever again.
Mm.
And on the flip side of that, something that as I've gotten older, it's the two things that I think is the most kind of captivating to me is somebody that thinks very differently. Like a friend of mine, his name's Will Jerome.
Hmm.
He runs a company called Full Time Fit Coach. He's like a fitness business coach out there. One of the brightest minds in the industry. Like the way the dude thinks is it's just kind of captivating to watch the dude talk and hear the dude think and just like see what he's doing. So he's somebody that I really, really admire for just how his brain works, which I don't think is even teachable. I think it's just like who the dude is.
Yeah.
And then somebody that can captivate like attention. So an example of that, and somebody that I look up to, even though she's younger than me, and just like her mentality and stuff. Which, by the way, you and Aaliyah should come to Lead Summit in October. If you guys
Okay.
can make it, you 100% should.
Oh, when is it? Why don't you just go on? I mean, yeah, when is it? Because we're going to Boston on the 4th.
October 20 is basically the 23rd to the 26th.
Yeah, we'll be there. Yeah.
Yeah, just well, we can talk about that afterwards. But both these people are going to be there. Will Jerome will be there. He'll be speaking, and then Maureen Evelyn, she'll be speaking there too.
Yeah.
Her Instagram's Marines Marketing. And I mean, she'll be on TED Talk stages before long. She launched like a mobile app that's got like 30,000 users on it. She like works one-on-one with people with content coaching. But she just like, you talk about messy action and just like being able to speak short form or long form in a way where people are just like, oh, how is she doing this? What is like, we watched her. She did a keynote at our January event, and she was 20 years old at the time. She's 21 now. And multiple six-figure business. She makes 6 figures just from her stance or link in bio alone, without any one-on-one coaching or recurring stuff.
Yeah.
But she's 21 years old, and she's just like this little kind of like, kind of smaller girl that is just, she'll just speak and she'll say things it makes so much sense, and it's so good, and it's not scripted. It's not even, it's just, you could see everybody in the crowd, because I was standing in the back, and you could see everyone in the crowd. Like she would say something and people would be like, oh my
Just
God.
like the light bulb moment
Yeah, like
again and again
you're
and again.
seeing
Yeah.
that nonstop. Like
Wow.
she just is a captivating person, and just so great at communicating and just distilling information down. So I think traits like that, as far as like people I look up to, brain functioning in a different way, like captivating people, and like those are things that I want to be able to do.
Yeah.
But I also know like a lot of that stuff is just innate. It's just who they are,
Yeah. I mean, do you again, like with the people that you look up to in, like, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Maybe like other entrepreneurs or people in the fitness business space, or like podcasters, or, people that you admire just in general. Like, I don't know if they're like a celebrity or something, but like, do you see that same quality? And like, again, like if it just a couple of names, I'd just be interested to know, like, who is it that maybe like you see and you're like, yeah, I really respect that person,
Yeah. I mean, those are two big ones. As far as like more celebrity, obviously Alex Ramosi. I don't think anybody will ever touch what he did a month ago,
Yeah, crazy.
ever.
Crazy.
But yeah, absurd. Him. I really like the way that Dan Martell distills his bigger ideas into, it's always into frameworks. That's something I've tried to kind of take from him, as far as learning that for something to be repeatable, digestible, easily kind of usable for somebody, you need to make it easy for them to. So he's got all of these different frameworks, like the replacement ladder, and he's got a bunch of acronyms that mean like really, really cool frameworks for what he does. So I really love how he does that.
I think he's great, by the way. Yeah. I like, yeah.
Dan Martell is really good. I really love Chris Williamson and how he's just like all in on this podcasting thing. And he just brings on, it's not even like, it's something I try to take from him is like, because I think you should take from people you look up to, not necessarily in like a plagiarism way, but in a way of like, this is something I admire and I'd like to include in what I'm trying to build. So don't take it exactly, but take like, oh, I need to turn my ideas into frameworks. Like that's a Dan Martell thing. Oh, I need to put myself more on the internet. That's a Alex Ramosi thing, or optimize this funnel. That's an Ramosi thing.
Yeah.
Chris Williamson's like, that's the reason I started podcasting, is because I didn't want to just do like a business podcast. I didn't want to just do like a bro out podcast. And I kind of watched him and listened to him for 6 months, and I'm like, he's having anybody like, there's no consistency. And who, sometimes it's just one of his friends, sometimes it's two of his friends, sometimes it's like the CEO of this multi-billion-dollar company, sometimes it's somebody in tech, sometimes it's an educator, sometimes it's a person in gender studies. Like, it's just whoever he's interested in talking to. And for me, that broke down the barrier of, oh, that would actually keep me really stimulated and involved in this thing, is doing that, like talking to whoever I just want. Like, it's been all AI recently that I've had on
Yeah.
my podcast. It's all AI founders.
Yeah.
And so I'm just talking a ton about AI because that's what I'm interested in at the moment. And sometimes it's just fitness coaches, and sometimes it's just my friends and family. And so that's one thing I took from him, is like, you don't have to be boxed in the content space. It's just like, you can kind of have your own brand that you do whatever you want with whenever you want.
Yeah, I guess one of the last questions I want to ask is like that just hit the word, like, not being boxed in, just like lit a light bulb up, because something that I've been really curious about is how to, in the age of personal branding, obviously AI's come in, and with AI as well, it's like we're in an age of all the facts being right at your fingertips, right? You can ask anything almost to AI and it's going to give you a damn good answer.
Yeah.
So especially, like, for example, online coaching would be a practical example for me and you. Like, it's not about the facts anymore about, do you eat in a calorie surplus? How do you lose body fat? You know what I'm saying? It's more of like, how can you create content in a way that, like, you share the value, but maybe you make it relevant to your personality, or you make it authentic in some way, you weave your story in it. Because otherwise, I think maybe you can relate, but one thing that I definitely don't want to do is like make content or like produce something that can just be commoditized. It's just commoditized and you can replace it. Like, imagine I said the same thing and it could be any other person face merged onto mine and it would make sense. I wouldn't actually like that, because then it's like, why am I doing it? Why am I pouring my energy into something which is basically useless because it's not relevant to me, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
And like, how do you think about, I don't know if you apply that to the AR funnel or like how you're going about creating content. Obviously podcasts, it's extremely hard to like mimic a long form conversation, but in the shorter form stuff, like, have you ever like experienced that? And how do you, again, with the rising AI and you're interested in it, how do you see yourself not being commoditized? Or maybe you don't have a problem with it, because if the most commoditized thing, but you can have an edge or something, then you win anyways.
Yeah, I think everything with AI is it's either the negative of it is, if you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. So if you're putting in very general stuff or asking for very general stuff, you're going to get the same thing out of it that everybody else got out of it. So with any type of AI things, and what I'm trying to keep in mind whenever I'm building AI things, whether it's assistants or AI agents or these two new AI platforms that I've been working on, you have to allow the user, or if you're the user, you have to put in special data that is unique to you, right? You have to put in your special spin on it. Because where I think the future of like lead magnets is going is completely custom lead magnets generated on the spot. So for example, like I have one right now where you could send me your niche as a fitness coach, and within 30 seconds, you're going to get a full like 12-page document of research on your niche, like where your people are hanging out, what types of podcasts they're likely listening to, what types of books they're likely
So the
reading.
avatar is going to be, just
Yeah,
find me. Yeah.
it just cranks it all out for you. But
Yeah.
that passes through like 7 AI assistants that I built with exactly how we look at niches inside of AR funnel, how we serve people inside of AR funnel, how we script out content, because it scripts out like VSLs for you. How
Is that on
we
Nen, by the way? Like, is that what it's called, right? Or N8N or something?
It's make.com. This one's on make.com.
Okay, yeah. But so
Yep.
sorry. Yeah.
And so it cranks out this massively valuable research document, but it does it in 30 seconds, which is about the same amount of time that it would take for a lead magnet to get emailed to you anyways after you opt into something.
Yeah.
And it's all custom, and it wasn't pre-written, but it's all built off of how we do the certain thing. Because I could have just made AI assistants that says you're going to generate a lead magnet title based on this niche. I could have just said like, you're going to script out a video that's probably going to sell somebody based on this niche. But instead, I fed it a bunch of information and training documents of what we were already giving coaches. So it's doing all these things, it's creating all of these things. How, if we had a research team, if that was our job, was to just do research on niches, it's the exact same output that we would have gotten from doing it manually.
Yeah.
Because I trained it and took the time to compile all the information so that it would do it effectively how we would do it. So
Yeah.
I think with AI, it's keeping in mind that, Roberto Nixon, RPN, he's another creator I really, really look up to. Definitely follow him if you don't already.
Check
But
them out.
he talks about like the barrier to entry is just going to get lower and lower and lower and lower. And, anybody will be able to create really, really great content. But he said the thing that everyone can create an equally high quality content and like great looking content, but, taste and your personal spin and your personality can never be replaced.
Yeah.
Right. And so you have to still keep your finger on the pulse. You have to still put your secret sauce, your special kind of just spin on things, even if you're using AI, and that's still going to be a differentiator.
Yeah. So yeah, with the lead magnets, for example, you're kind of saying like instead of giving like a template which is like almost it's going to help a bunch of people in this niche, you're actually given the prompt which is going to give a hyper personalized, you know, for example, making your avatar for an individual. So it's
Yeah.
like instant and super personalized, value in like seconds. But yeah,
Yeah.
that part, like I guess if anyone can do that, then that could be commoditized. But you're still saying that the content itself, like if everyone has these cool edits and everyone's quality looks good, etc., still the thing that's going to be there is like your story, your like authenticity, and like your humor, your like idiosyncrasies, and like that is actually, so it's funny, it's almost like we just, even again with all the facts, it's the human element obviously that can't be
Yeah.
replaced, and that human element is what people relate to, and that is why in business, for example, people are going to be more drawn to one person than the other because they're going to have the same information, but maybe they resonate with the story more. They just like someone more. It's more like just taste as opposed to like facts.
Exactly. And it's in the, if to give a more relevant example with fitness coaching, you could have an AI right now through ChatGPT. You could just create a little GPT assistant that creates meal plans. And there's a big difference between like you giving it instructions that says you are in charge of creating meal plans. Whenever I send you macros, create a meal plan. And that would work, right? Like that would do the thing. But there's a big difference in that and I'm just making stuff up. I don't know if you actually we'll just say Jeff, and so it's not you. So
Yeah.
it's not like clipped and taken out of context. But let's say Jeff, the coach, he could do that. He could just say, "You're in charge of making meal plans. I'm going to send you macros. Give me a meal plan." Or he could say, because Jeff really believes in the keto diet, right? And he's like, "Hey, whenever I send you macros, you're going to create a meal plan that follows the ketogenic diet. I believe that the protein to fat breakdown should be this percent to this
So
percent.
my blueprint.
Carbs should never be above this percent. I
Mm.
also believe that that most of their meats should be red meats because of the content of selenium and all these other. And I also believe 20% should be more white meats like your chicken and the carb source should never be more. And if you feed it all of that, then it's like, what am I going to get every time I send macros to that? I'm going to get a meal plan exactly how Jeff would have output a meal plan anyways, right? But they're both going to give me a meal plan, but this one's extremely generic. It was created, but extremely generic. This one feels like Jeff actually made it because Jeff trained it and did all the right things to get a fantastic result out of it.
Yeah. So you're almost like paying for, because the speed's going to be there, but you're literally paying for like this person's consciousness in a way. Like you're
Yeah.
paying for like the way they think or the way they like determine that this is the best way. Like you're packaging that in AI and you're programming it in a way that like it's going to produce that without me actually doing it, but you programmed it in that way.
Yeah. Because in a sea of, you got to think about this is all going to be normal within
Yeah.
a year. In a sea of GPT created content, all the content is going to be very, 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 very similar.
Yeah.
But if one of you is prompting, write me an Instagram post, and the other one is write me an Instagram post about this, 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 and this. Here's all the knowledge I have on the area. Here's my
Yeah.
expertise in the area. Here's hooks that I like to use on my content. Go. Who's going to stand out more?
Yeah. So
This one
now,
where there's 1,000 like of the same exact post, or this one where there's one?
yeah, it's like Seth Godin in his book, like the purple cow. Like he's just have you heard of that? It's obviously like
I've heard
all
of
the brown
I've heard
cows,
of
and
the
you
book.
see the purple cow. It's like you become the purple. So like you need to make it hyper specific. So even though again we have more content than ever, there's like more content going on the internet every single day than ever. But you just need to like have your blueprint or your like your kind of like, how do I say, almost like your essence in this content so that it like stands out amongst all the junk. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
not about, it's oversaturated. It's kind of, it is saturated in the sense there's tons of stuff, but it's not, if you're hyper specific and you speak to one person, you kind of get your story in there. That's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, and to be able to do this, data is king.
Yeah.
So, if anybody is listening that is a fitness coach, all your sales calls should be on Zoom. You should be recording all of them,
Mm.
like immediately if you're
Giving
not
it to
already.
ChatGPT. I
Yeah,
mean,
well,
yeah.
yeah. So like I had a guy the other day, he does 200 grand a month in online fitness coaching. He put his last he had been recording his calls for this reason for the last,
Mm.
year and a half. He put his last 500
Oh,
Zoom call
wow.
transcripts into ChatGPT, and he had ChatGPT write him new funnels from top to bottom, write him most common FAQs across
Mm.
500 calls. And so he recorded videos responding to every one of the most common FAQs to put those on his funnels. He pre-handled all of the objections that he was getting on all of his calls. And
Mm.
so now it's like it's a cakewalk for him to close because he had 500 data points of
Yeah.
transcripts. And so he took all of that, let AI interpret the big data, which we can't as humans interpret that,
Mm.
let AI interpret it, and he revamped his business and made it even more valuable because he took
Wow.
all of that, but he had the data. That's the
Yeah.
difference. Is like you could go through a long process prompting it, but also it's like I could go through a long process of prompting that thing, or I could feed it 200 previous meal plans that I've made.
Mm.
And then I can tell it, look for the patterns in here. And then it's going to find
Yeah.
all the same insights and probably more insights. And then it can make its own prompt with
Yeah.
all of those data points.
So the principle remains: you need to do a ton of action to actually still course correct. Otherwise, there's going to be nothing to course correct.
Correct.
So, okay, last question: where do you think? Obviously, you're into AI, and actually, with that being such an interesting topic, you know, what I mean, like, that could be a whole nother podcast. But where do you think AI is moving right now? And maybe we can tailor it to the fitness, bodybuilding, online coach space.
Yeah.
As that is your like area of expertise. Like, where do you see things going? And maybe it'll be cool, like, to look back at this and be like, yeah, he was right. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was where things are moving.
Yeah. I think I think there's three possible. I mean, I just went out to Austin and gave like a speech on this at a conference. I think it's three possible paths. And this is kind of like a come to Jesus moment that I had about 6 months ago. It was like February, March of this year. It was the three different paths, in my opinion. One of them is fitness coaches get replaced. Okay. I think this is the most likely is that nerds nerds like me, right? I don't have ill intent, but I think nerds look at the fitness space and they see that we are like prehistoric basically in like a year. And they're like, nobody here is using AI. Nobody here is using a lot of tech. We could easily come in and launch like super low ticket stuff.
Do you mean
And
like an RP strength kind of thing? Like, aren't they kind of doing that already to an extent?
I mean, kind of. I wouldn't really say that RP strength is like aiming to replace coaches. Like they have products that a lot of coaches are even using RP strength as like a part of their offers, right? But kind of like that. I would say a good example is, have you seen all the apps where you can like take a picture of like a plate of food and
the Cal AI and stuff?
and it just like it makes up numbers and like some of it might be accurate, a lot of it's not.
Yeah.
But that's like I think like nerds kind of dipping their toes and like there's an untapped thing over here where people are way behind. So that's one option, I think. Option two, which I think this is the most likely to happen, is that a few coaches, like maybe 100 coaches, go all in on AI and they end up with like 5,000 clients each. And so the whole thing is kind of monopolized into
big
this
monopolies.
small group of coaches. What I hope is that, and why I've created the products that we're about to launch and the way that I've created them, is what I want to happen is that as many coaches as possible are educated and using AI to multiply their impact. Okay, not to replace themselves, but to multiply their impact and be able to impact more people. So that's why we've kind of taken the approach that we're taking is like, could I have easily seen this 6 months ago and been like, you know what, we're going to replace coaches. Why build the thing to help them out whenever I can build the thing to replace them? And we don't have to work with any of them. We can just build the thing and just have all the clients ourselves. Like, could have taken that approach. But to me, coaches are some of the most important jobs on earth. And with the obesity epidemic and like people need accountability, they need connection, they need relationships. So I want to build things that empower coaches to multiply their impact.
I personally think from that, like, I can't see number one happening because of the human element, because we have all the information out there and still like 70% of Americans are obese. So it's not an information problem. It is an implementation and a relationship building and like a self-image and self-worth and psychological issue, which I feel like the human connection, like coaching is probably never going to go away. But yeah, I really like the idea of, having AI to multiply the impact and probably, obviously, multiply impact because of how well you can deliver the service, but also fight in the marketplace to even find these customers in the first place and show your results and etc.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that if you are a coach, you've got to be pursuing that. Like by any means necessary, you've got to figure out AI. You've got to adopt AI tools. You've really got to take that upon yourself to figure it out and how you can implement it in your business, or else you will be. The only way that a coach is going to get replaced by AI is they're going to get replaced by coaches that are using AI.
Yeah,
Period.
100%.
So
Well, look, it's been a great podcast. Definitely gonna have to have you on again. But I guess the final, word that I have to use, where can they find you? How can they get in contact with you? Promote anything that comes to mind. Obviously, AR funnel.
yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, first of all, dude, thanks for having me on. This is, you've got a bright future in this thing. You're a great interviewer and everything. So this was an honor to get asked to be one of the first guests. So thank you for
My
that.
pleasure. Thanks for coming on.
But yeah, just Bakker Shields on everything. My name's spelled with 2 Ks, Bakker, .shields on every platform. You can find me there.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.